Hello and welcome to my Central Virginia garden. Sometimes when you're planting indoor seedlings, things just don't seem to be working out well. And that's exactly what's going on with my tomato seedlings this year, which are just not thriving. I planted them, the third week of March, and they're teeny, 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 tiny. Some are just now getting their first true leaves. So I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to go ahead and direct seed tomatoes right into my garden today. Now, it's a little bit early, just a little bit early, but hear me out. This is what I'm going to do. Now my zone is 7B. I think I'm kind of on the border between A and B. But I looked up my frost date, and it is next Saturday, the April 21st. And today is reasonably warm. What's more, this coming week, there's absolutely no chance of frost. It's going to be in the 80s every day, which is crazy. The long-term forecast calls for some rainy days, but temps basically in the 70s. So that's 2 weeks to the end of the month where the weather is going to be very, very warm and fair. So I think it'll do okay. And I'm really curious to see whether these direct sown tomatoes are going to actually outperform and outgrow the ones that are struggling on the inside. So I'll keep you up to date on that. If the ones that are on the inside suddenly start to grow and start to thrive, well, I'll just have to plant more tomatoes somewhere. But where there's a will, there's a way. So I'm going to plant a bunch of different tomatoes, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I'm orienting and the decisions I'm making about where to put them this year. Typically, I grow my tomatoes on the perimeters, and I'm going to do that again this year. But last year, for some reason, the ones that I grew on my northern perimeter, especially on the northwest side, didn't thrive. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. I think I didn't amend that soil very well the previous fall. And also, it's a little bit close to a walnut tree. It's far, but that could also be having a little bit of an effect. So I'm going to go ahead and change things up a little bit and put some beans over there, which I know will do well. And that's the north in this direction. And then I'm going to plant my tomatoes all along my southern fence line to the garden. So just so you know, I built my garden from scratch, started 5 years ago, just on this field that's behind me. It's a no-dig garden for those of you who are not familiar with my growing style and my garden. You can learn all about that on my channel. I've got loads of videos up there. But I oriented it so that it is north to south, and it really gets spectacular sun, maximum sun, all day long. So that is north. South is directly behind me here. The east is to my right, and the west is to my left. So it really gets sun all day long, especially the southern exposure. So I'll show you what I'm doing and some of the varieties that I'm going to plant. I'm planting some indeterminate varieties as well as some determinate varieties today. So as you look up the row, you'll see that I have my tomatoes spaced out about every 2 feet. I have not driven the stakes in for these yet, but I will do that when I get some help, since I'm still one-winged with this broken wrist. But this I can do for myself. All right, so the 2 determinate varieties that I'm planting today are Mariglobe, and I'm growing those as part of a challenge, not really a challenge, a group growing thing that my online garden group is doing, just for fun. And some new ones for me. This is another bush type, determinate type, called a Red Pride. My indeterminate ones are Old Virginia, Druzba, D-R-U-Z-B-A, a Green Zebra. I love the name of this one, Kellogg's Breakfast. It's a yellow tomato. An Illinois Star. So those are my indeterminates that I'm going to put in this upper level. So in each planting space, I'm going to sow several seeds just to make sure we get some germination. And I can always move plants and thin them out. That's no big deal. Another thing that tells me it's time are what volunteers are coming up in my garden right now. And just in the last few days, even though we've had a little bit of a cold, it hasn't been cold, it's been in the 60s, I have several things that tell me it's time, the soil is ready. These little guys right here are marigolds. These are volunteer marigolds. I had marigolds growing here last year, so I imagine I'm going to get a ton of volunteers coming up. I will ultimately probably move these a little bit out of the way, although I like them growing nearby my tomato plant. So that tells me the soil is warm enough here. What else tells me? Here in the middle of my pathway is a volunteer bean from last year. So that tells me if the beans are sprouting, then this soil is warm enough for tomatoes as well. These are also volunteer. I think these are zinnias that are coming up. Volunteer calendula, which came up a couple of weeks ago. Here. All right, this post will stay here. That's a perfectly good post for putting tomatoes in. And I have a very nice rich soil in here. This has been well amended. So I'm just gonna dig down a little bit in here, loosen up the soil. Oh yeah, this is great. That's a volunteer something. No more. This will be plenty loose for this to grow into. This soil was amended in the fall, or how I treated this in the fall was by putting a layer of compost down. In most of my beds, I put some alfalfa pellets down as well before that, and then I put dried leaves or hay, depending on what material I had available at that time. I am pulling out any little weed starts. So here goes the druza. Tomatoes are to be sown pretty shallow, really only about a quarter of an inch deep, which is hardly anything. So there goes 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, well, hopefully among these 4, we'll get at least 1 to germinate. And we can move the others around. That won't hurt a bit. It rained recently, and I have my label here that I'm putting in, the bruza. So let's see, 1, 2, about 2 feet down. I'm going to go ahead and put in my next one, which is Old Virginia. I love trying new kinds of tomatoes every year, and in my view, you can never have too many tomatoes, truly. I know there was once a cookbook called Too Many Tomatoes, but I really don't think that's a thing in my view. These are the Old Virginias. I'd love to hear your comments and whether you think these direct sown ones are going to outperform my my little puny. Oh, let me go ahead and loosen this up. My little punies inside or not. I really think they're going to. Because this is so friable down low, it just is. Oh, there's a little worm. Hello. See? I'm not going to hurt you. You go right back in. Do your thing. Do your thing, little guy. You know, you just want to come exactly where you were, don't you? All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish planting out this row, and I'll check you at the end. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll update you and let you know how this little experiment is going as the summer progresses. I hope you're well. Take care. Bye.